Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.
Jeremy Ryan of Madison is a Republican running in the 1st Congressional District. The primary is August 14th. Jeremy, welcome back to WisconsinEye.
Thank you.
What do you consider the top issue for you in this race?
Right now, the top issue for me is legalizing cannabis. I think that would have a wide range of effects. One of the effects would be that it would bring billions upon billions of dollars into our economy at a time that we really need it. It would bring a bunch of jobs clear across the country. If we legalized it on the federal level, it would still be up to the states to go one way or another, but I think a lot more states would go with legalization. I think it's only a matter of time either way. We would save money on DEA and in prisons. We'd save tons of money.
Some Democrats are more likely to have that as a position than Republicans. Why are you a Republican?
I'm running as a Republican because my views don't really fit in either party. I would kind of probably be viewed more as a libertarian, except where the libertarians tend to lose me is privatization of everything. And that's center point to their philosophy, and that's something that I am completely opposed to. And so outside of that, I typically tend to fall on the libertarian beliefs. But if you look on both sides, on the outside of the spectrum, they both agree on almost everything. And even the average voter, the average Republican voter and the average Democratic voter will generally agree on most things. It's just that right now we're so divided that we focus on what we don't agree on. And my campaign is more about focusing on what most people agree on. And we can bicker about the rest later. And that's why my platform doesn't fall within either party. But I decided to run as a Republican because the last presidential election showed me that the Republican voters are more likely to buck the party than the Democratic voters are. I think that the Democratic voters tend to vote more sheepishly in the primaries, and I do think the Republican voters tend to vote more sheepishly in the general. So they both have their set points, but I do think that I could fit it. I don't really fit in either one, but as an independent, there's not really much of any chance that you can go anywhere. So I had to choose one, and for this race, I chose the Republicans.
Now, you referred to legalizing marijuana, as your number one issue. What are some other elements in your campaign platform?
Legalizing marijuana, ending Citizens United, taking corporate money out of politics. My campaign, I'm doing the entire primary on less than $5,000. I'm not taking any contributions from people. If someone really wanted to contribute a small amount, I would accept that as long as I stay under the $5,000 limit. But as of now, the plans are to self-finance my entire campaign. That way there's no special interest involvement, nothing. So I'm practicing what I preach. And so a vote for me is a vote against money in politics. It's a vote to prove that people can mean more than money. And so that's my second biggest issue. Third, I want to shift tax breaks from giant corporations over to small and medium-sized businesses. Take, for example, General Electric, GE. Mm-hmm. They, in the last 10 years, haven't paid any taxes. Their tax bills have been $0. And in some years, they've actually gotten money back. They just moved 300 and some jobs outside of right on the border of the district. It's not in my congressional district, but it's right outside of it. Many people in my congressional district lost their job over that. And they shouldn't be paying nothing in taxes. Well, the family farms that are struggling to scrape by and the Main Street businesses that are taking care of their employees pay up to 35%. That doesn't make any sense. Another platform idea is imposing tariffs. I do believe that's one place in which I kind of agree with President Trump.
You do.
It's been twisted, though. I don't agree with how he's doing it. I think we need to impose tariffs clear across the board. I think the only way to win a trade war is to make it clear across the board. He's going and nitpicking select industries as revenge against certain companies. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's how you lose a trade war. How you win it and how you keep jobs in your company is by penalizing all companies who move jobs overseas. And so I support imposing tariffs clear across the board, bringing value back to the American worker and value back to the American product. And another idea that I just added to my platform was making it so that nobody who is convicted of a nonviolent victimless crime would ever serve a day in any federal prison. Taking away any prisoners, that would save tons of money in federal dollars. And if you think about what the point of prisons is it's to keep people who are unsafe out of our society. And there is no way that anybody can stand here and say if someone is convicted of a nonviolent victimless crime that they are a problem or they are unsafe for society. I'm not saying that you could have no penalty whatsoever for them, but I'm saying that we shouldn't have them in our prisons.
Let's go back to what you believe about how government should or should not help private businesses. Foxconn is scheduled to be in the 1st Congressional District, which is your district, and they're saying up to 13,000 jobs. You do not then support the state package of incentives and tax breaks, potentially $4.5 billion, even though it, the governor, other members of your party say it would help Southeast Wisconsin?
No, I am the only Republican in this district that does not support that incentive. I think $4.5 billion for 14,000 jobs, that's over $100,000 per job. And Foxconn doesn't have a good history of paying very well for jobs. I think what we could have done with that $4.5 billion is we could have given it elsewhere in the district to smaller and medium-sized businesses, and we could have gotten a whole lot more than 14,000 jobs out of it. If we were willing to give those tax breaks, and that's a state level versus federal level issue, but still, if we were willing to give those tax breaks in the district, we should have done it with small and medium-sized businesses, because I know I can name off the top of my head 100 business owners that would gladly hire more employees if they had the tax breaks to do so.
The raging issue debate nationally and internationally, at least in North America, over immigration. What's your position on that?
My position on immigration is this. I have several friends who are undocumented. I have several more friends who have become citizens over the many years that I've known them. And right now, it takes about 15 years and about $50,000 if you do it on the cheapest and quickest end to become a citizen. But it's not based on what you're contributing to society. It's based off of how well you can jump through bureaucratic hoops that really don't matter, and how well you can master a test that most U.S. citizens couldn't even pass. I think what we need to do is we need to allow the immigrants that are here, rather than spending billions of dollars detaining them, we allow them a legal stay, a temporary legal stay, where they can start paying taxes like a normal person. They can't get public benefits. Undocumented workers do not get public benefits anyways, but we would keep it that way. So they're not taking anything out, but they can contribute, they can pay taxes, they can work, and they can work at actual rates that an American citizen would work, which would bring more money in, versus in a lot of places. In Wisconsin, it's not as common, but in a lot of places, they're getting paid $2, $3 an hour. They're not bringing much into the economy off those wages. So, they'd get the same, they'd pay in, and after they've established, you could make it 10 years, you could make it 15 years, you could make it the same amount of time, but after they've proven that they're contributing members of society, they would be able to get citizenship, which could be revoked if in the future they start committing serious crimes. Because there's some people that will say, well, once they're citizens, then it's over. They can start killing and raping people. I don't think that's really something that's prevalent. I don't think that really happens amongst people that get citizenships. Maybe you might be able to find one or two people that that's happened with, but it would be an extraordinarily small number. But there would be a process where the citizenship could be taken if they commit serious crimes later on after they're citizens.
President Trump, I think, tweeted 2 or 3 weeks ago that someone who came here illegally should be immediately deported without due process, without a court date. Do you support that?
No, I don't support that. I think that I think that our civil rights should apply. I think humans should be treated like humans, regardless of whether they're citizens or not. And on another point related to that, I don't support locking children or anybody in dog kennels, oversized dog kennels with porta potties and space blankets. And I understand that was the actual facilities that they're using were created by Obama and used in the Obama day. All of the pictures you see in the media of these detention centers and children sleeping on floors with space blankets in a cage with porta potties behind them, those were all taken in 2014. And I was critical of it in 2014. I'm critical of it now. I don't support separating children from families, which is something that Obama didn't do, but Trump did. I think that every human has the right to be treated like a human. And I don't think that we should be so inhuman as to view one person as different than another. On that note, one of my friends came here 17 years ago. His mother brought him over here illegally, and from Mexico. The problem was they were running a farm. The farm production was down a little bit, and it was actually due to environmental factors. It wasn't due to any problem of theirs. So the cartels came, raped and murdered his sister, and killed his father, and then told his mother that she has to get production up. And that's a common story. That's a common reason why people are here. That's a common reason why they come here. What do you expect that mother to do? So she packed up, and cross the border, which most people don't make it when they cross the border. So many people die trying to cross the border. It's not an easy thing. It's not like crossing the street here. A lot of people like to make it seem like it is. It's not. It's a very dangerous, very brutal thing to do. And he made it, thankfully. He's a good friend of mine. So thankfully he made it. His mom made it. But I can't start to view someone as less than human because they made a decision that anybody else would make if they didn't score the birthplace lottery.
As a Republican candidate for Congress, what was your reaction to President Trump's press conference yesterday with the president of Russia? Do you think he misspoke? Do you think he undermined our intelligence community?
I think he undermined the intelligence community. I don't think he misspoke. Had he misspoke, I think he would have issued a retraction in much less than over 24. It took him over 24 hours to come up with his ridiculous story, "Oh, I misspoke." Okay. It wouldn't take that long. I think he said what he was trying to say. Maybe he said it with the plans of issuing a retraction later just because he wanted to get headlines. Maybe he said it because him and Putin were discussing things in the back with no one else present, that he wanted him to say it. Also, I think on the statement of issuing a retraction, it's so easy to issue a retraction when you're not face-to-face with somebody. Mm-hmm. So it really doesn't, even if he did misspeak, I would think there was more behind it because there's a lot more pressure when you're face-to-face with somebody than when you're back home comfortably taking a bath. And so, but I don't believe it. I don't buy the story. I think he meant to say what he said, and I think that it was a horrible misstep.
Some members of the U.S. House would like to introduce a resolution backing our intelligence community in light of the president's comments. If you were in the U.S. House, would you vote for that resolution?
I would. I would vote for that resolution. I would probably try to add something to the bill acknowledging some of the faults in the intelligence community, which aren't really related to intelligence, but the CIA, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, they've done some pretty awful things throughout the years, and I think we also need to acknowledge places in which they weren't necessarily on point, not related to intelligence, but related to actions. And it's actually been the intelligence community that started most of the wars that we've had in different types of regime changes and different things that they've done in other countries that have been just awful. So I think we do as a country need to acknowledge the faults in the intelligence community and try to work on those. But as far as the intelligence that they bring, it's almost always rock solid, unless there's a particular reason not to. Case in point, the Iraq War and some of the false intelligence. I think that was intentionally falsified. But unless there's a psychological reason to intentionally falsify it, their intelligence is almost always rock solid.
The Trump administration sent Congress a budget that would have dramatically boosted spending by the military, the Pentagon, to more than $700 billion a year. It was a big increase. If you were in the U.S. House, could you support that increase in military spending?
I could, under the condition that we first rein in the spending in the Pentagon. There was a recent report that over the last, I believe it was 10 years, the Pentagon lost $21 trillion. 21
lost?
Yeah, just completely lost it. I was reading this the other day. I think it was on CBS News, but they found out that they've lost $21 trillion over a period of multiple years. That also correlates to our national debt. So we need to figure out where all this money is going. Every year we find out the Pentagon's losing more and more money, and it's completely unaccounted for. No one knows where it went. We need to find out where that money is going and rein in on that before we start boosting extra spending. I do support the military having all the money that they need, but I don't. You can't continue handing someone money that keeps losing it.
In light of mass shootings and school shootings, do we need tougher gun laws in the nation?
My stance on guns is this. I think that we need to focus on where we agree and bicker about the rest later. Both sides agree that we need background checks for private sales. At some gun shows, they automatically do background checks, and you have to do a background check through a dealer to buy from them. At some you don't. But I don't think anywhere in the country should it be legal to buy a gun as easy as you would buy a bag of Skittles from the grocery store. That just doesn't make any sense. I think we need to have a very streamlined, a very accurate background check system, 100% accurate, and a very streamlined and simple system to use. That's what I support right now. I think we need to pass that where we can both agree, and then we can figure out where we stand later on everything else and bicker about that.
How big a threat is climate change to our environment in the world?
I think it's a pretty big threat. The science is all there, and what the science can't say is in what time frame is it going to. In what time frame are you going to see a direct effect from it? And so I think we need to look into that, but I also think we need to start making moves to reduce our carbon footprint, because if we continue the way we are, there's no scientific evidence to refute that things are going to start getting worse, and that the environment is suffering a major toll. And so I do believe that climate change is real. I do believe that it is a threat. I just don't know to the exact extent of which it is. But regardless of what extent it is, whether it's my lifetime or my great-grandchildren's lifetime, we still need to take steps to try to reduce the harm that we're doing.
You're running as a Republican. Republicans in Washington have been unable to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. Do you support getting rid of the Affordable Care Act?
I don't necessarily support getting rid of the Affordable Care Act. What I support is taking the best parts of it and running with those, ending pre-existing conditions. That needs to stay. We can't go back to where someone ends up getting denied insurance because of a pre-existing condition. Keeping children on their parents' policies till they're 26, ending lifetime maximums. But what I think we need to do instead of repealing the Affordable Care Act is we need to limit the amount of money these insurance companies and healthcare companies can make. It's absolutely ridiculous that when I go to the hospital for my heart condition, that I end up having to pay $12,000 a day, sometimes up to $40,000 a day, for a nurse to sit and look at my telemetry, my cardiac stuff. They're sitting in a room with 12 screens, but even if I was the only person there, the pads themselves cost $3. The machine at its face costs $10,000, but that can be used from patient to patient. That can be used for many years. And the nurse isn't getting paid enough to justify $10,000, $12,000, or $40,000 just to sit in a room and watch my heart. That doesn't make any sense. Pharmaceutical companies as well are just off the charts with their price gouging. Insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, and healthcare providers are all gouging the Americans like crazy, and we need to stop that, at least temporarily. If they want to start regulating themselves better, then we can look at repealing that part later, but we need to put a cap on the amount of profit that these places can make on each service, and I think that will help fix the system in and of itself. My problem with the Affordable Care Act, and I've had this stance from the beginning, was this: you do not pay the people that created a problem massive amounts of money to fix it. And that's what the bulk of it was giving the insurance companies massive amounts of money paid for by the citizens and to fix the problem that they created. That never makes sense. If I burned down your house, and you knew I burned down your house, and I said, well, pay me $200,000 to rebuild your house, there's no way that you would do it. In no sense does it make sense to pay the people who created a problem to fix it. Never has, never will. And that is where the Affordable Care Act has failed. But we can fix that. And I think the step to fixing that would be to limit the profits, at least for a little while, to send the message that you can't be gouging people like they are.
The latest projection says that the Social Security system is going to be technically bankrupt by 2034. How would you fix it?
I think one thing we need to do is, first we need to get our national debt under control. And you do that by, the best way to do that would be bringing in more money. Also, taxing giant corporations at a larger rate. You know, if GE kicks in a little bit here and all of the other GEs out there kicked in a little bit, then we'd be fixing almost all of our problems. But I think that we need to bring in more money, and part of that has to do, in my stance, part of it has to do with legalizing cannabis. Also, shifting the tax breaks to small and medium-sized businesses is going to create more economic activity, going to create more tax money coming in, and also my justice reforms. My prison reform will save trillions of dollars, and even the immigration would create a lot more people paying taxes, my immigration stance. So there's a lot of different policies that I have to bring more money in, but we also need to stop spending $1.3 trillion in omnibus bills on random things that make no sense. And we'll have money for Social Security, we'll have money for SNAP, we'll have money for Medicare.
How did the race change for you when the Speaker Ryan announced he was not going to seek re-election?
I had announced that I was going to run a couple weeks before Speaker Ryan announced that he wasn't going to re-election. I don't think it really changed at all. You know, what I was going to do is the same as what I'm doing. Okay. But it is kind of convenient. Now I'm the only Ryan on the ballot, so people who hear what I have to say and like what I have to say, it's really easy for them to remember who to vote for, because especially there's a lot of people that voted for Ryan all 10 times that he ran that hear me speak, and they're like, this guy makes sense. And I am radically different from anything there. People have been hurting for many years, and people need something to change. And you can't get radical change without something radically different. And that's what I offer. That's what I've offered since before he announced he wasn't going to run for re-election. But it's probably more convenient that now he's not running, so now it's a larger primary. The larger the primary is, the easier it is for non-mainstream candidates to build a message and build a base. And
then finally, do you want to highlight differences between you and your primary opponents on August 14th?
Yeah, I mean, the difference is that every one of my policy items is not something that any of them are platform items for any of them. Actually, I would go as far as to say on either side of the aisle, my platform is not something that is anyone else's platform. And so my entire campaign is radically different. But one thing that's different about me is that I actually practice what I preach. What you see is what you get. And that sometimes it's controversial. For instance, I have smoked cannabis in campaign videos. That's something that I do. That's something that I would continue to do, although I wouldn't be doing my job as a Congress rep high. But that's something that a lot of people do. The difference between me and the difference between other candidates is that with me you get the raw, genuine version. There's no disputing that. There's no, you wouldn't want to go as non-mainstream as I have if it wasn't genuine. And so I'm not a polished and groomed politician. I'm a regular person, and I'm putting myself out there. And if people want an actual regular person, not a polished and groomed politician, then they can vote for me. If they want a polished and groomed politician that's going to tell them one thing and do another, or that's going to be a different person in front of them than they normally are, well, then they have plenty of other choices. And that's the biggest difference between me and them.
Okay, thank you. Jeremy Ryan of Madison is a Republican running in the 1st Congressional District. The primary is August 14th. Jeremy, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.